Thank you for joining me today for another episode of Hunger Hunt Feast. Today, I'm just going to go through my diet, how I'm eating now, how I'm following an animal-based diet, and give you some ideas of how you can adjust or modify that plan to fit your own goals, whether that's for weight loss, maintenance, adding muscle, age-related adjustments, which are certainly important. Um, so let's just get into it. It's pretty simple. You may need some time to adjust if this is kind of new to you, if you're not used to animal-based diet or used to really prioritizing animal protein, um, or you're not used to limiting meal frequency and adjusting that. But your body will adjust. You just give it some time to do that. And I think you'll find this is something you can, as I said before, adjust for your own personal goals and get some great results from. So generally speaking, uh, it's made up of 2 to 3 meals a day, depending on my activity level, my work schedule, what I've got going on that day. I put a priority on animal-based protein, if you haven't heard me say that before, but prioritize that goal. In other words, I set the goal for ideally 1 gram of protein per pound of ideal body weight, with a minimum on most days, generally speaking, of about 0.75 grams per pound of body weight. So at least I know I can always hit that, and that's a bare minimum. I weigh 205 ish. Sometimes I creep above that, but so hitting 200 plus grams of protein, you're talking about over 2 pounds of some sort of meat, right? So that's a significant amount of meat. And if I'm trying to eat, let's say it's a day when I only have 2 meals, I may not always hit that, pound per gram or 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. But I definitely get over 0.75, which would be like 150-ish and change, 150 grams of protein. That's not a problem. And so depending on what else might be in my diet, what else is going on that day, there's days where you just under eat, and that's okay. And so we'll get into that a little bit. But for those of you using metric, that's 1.65, give or take, to 2.2 grams of protein per kilo of ideal body weight. So it gives you some idea how to do that conversion. And I eat all sorts of animal protein: beef, chicken, pork, small, low mercury fish, eggs, whole eggs, of course. Beef is best. Beef is the most nutrient dense. Just because the micronutrients, the fat profile, there's a lot less omega-6, linoleic acid in beef than there is in the other types of meat. But considerations for variety for the family. I'm often cooking meat for the whole family to eat, as well as economic concerns. I mean, beef's very expensive right now. All meat is expensive right now. And you got to fit things in the budget. But unless you're just taking care of yourself, or maybe it's you and one other person, maybe you make those sacrifices, and find your good sources of beef, and that would be ideal. I have at least 2 kids living with me most of the time, and we're all big meat eaters. So, variety and economics, that's gonna create a reason for us to have a little more variety of the types of meat we're eating. But so additional food to that would be whole food, and ideally whole food that is good source of potassium and magnesium, like avocado, banana, sweet potato, to get those electrolytes and those minerals that I find potassium and magnesium difficult to get in purely animal foods, at least for me to get enough. I know there's people who are thriving and doing just fine purely on on a carnivore diet. They don't eat any fruit or any other plant to get those, and maybe they supplement those. That's their thing. For me, I need more potassium, magnesium for electrolytes, one, so I don't dehydrate, and I just feel better. I sleep better. So we'll get into that as well. But I have a hard time getting those without eating additional food. So I usually, for me, it's especially along with my training routine, banana and sweet potato are my typical sources for those. So, and I drink electrolytes too. I use Relight electrolytes, love them from Redmond's. They're awesome, great for hydration, especially on low meal frequency, like 1 or 2 meal a day days, or eating just low carb, where you're just not, holding on to a lot of fluid. That helps me keep my blood pressure up where it needs to be. As I start getting dehydrated, the blood pressure drops and energy level goes. It's not that I can't burn enough fat for energy, or that, it's a lot of times it's hydration, it's sodium, and blood pressure dropping just from the loss of electrolytes and fluid. So that really helps me keep my energy level up on those days where I'm restricting meals and just trying to, just getting through my day, right? Not intense workouts, but just getting through my day. Use it during intense workouts too, of course. If you're looking, try those out. I have a link on my Instagram for you get 15% off if you want to use that link. But Relight electrolytes, check them out. But that's the electrolytes aren't enough for me. They're great for electrolytes to keep the blood pressure up and stay hydrated. But I think we need more than that, personally, more magnesium and potassium. And so it's not enough for my daily needs. That's why I need more than just for electrolytes, and just for, muscle function, heart function, sleep. So that's why I prioritize those other plant foods, bananas and sweet potato, because they do have magnesium and potassium as well. There is, of course, an exception to my protein rule when I eat 1 meal a day, which I do once a week, usually, where I fast until dinner, and then I have just a big dinner. I might have 12 ounces to a pound of meat at that meal, depending on how I feel, what else is going on. But I'm usually pretty hungry, at that point, not starving at all, but ready to eat. And I prioritize getting my protein is whatever I can, knowing it's going to be under what I usually get in a day or what my body needs. But that's kind of the point of a fasting day, is to train my body to burn fat more effectively, to have some cellular turnover, knowing I'm going to be recycling some protein, and just build some food discipline, right? It's personal discipline as well as fat burning efficiency. So I don't freak out. I don't turn it into a stress thing. It's just I eat what I feel like I can eat, whatever that is that night for dinner. But I make that a weekly habit. And the idea of under eating here and there is a good thing. I think it's an excellent thing to make the body. One, you do lose a lot of fluid that day, which any excess fluid, usually retained fluid, comes off. You're training your fat burning metabolism to operate at a moderate. I usually wouldn't do much more than just some moderate or light and low intensity cardio on a fasting day like that. I wouldn't lift. I wouldn't do sprints. Usually, wouldn't do anything high intensity. Usually keep it low intensity and just get a lot of work done. Focus on work. Keep my mind busy and stay out of the kitchen if possible. But I just find it a good habit, and for all those reasons. But it's not something to say, oh, well, I've got to hit this protein goal. And create stress around that. It doesn't make sense for me to do that. It's not consistent. So we have to make exceptions, knowing that every day is not the same, and that we can, balance, adjust, and create stressors, and then recover from those stressors. And that's what that is. That is a metabolic stressor to fast until dinner. But once a week, if I'm really trying to trim down for something, for whatever reason, whether it's, get in front of a camera and you want to look lean, then that week or so, or, I might do 2 of those. But generally speaking, once a week is enough for me to avoid any type of underfeeding for the week with my training schedule, or to affect, would affect my sleep, any kind of extra stress that could affect basically recovery and sleep, put it simply. I'll talk about that as well as we're talking about as we get adjusting this as you get older. But this is ideal. The protein goal, the meal frequency, it's ideal for both men and women who want a lean, athletic physique. And I know women who do eat 1 gram of protein per pound of their body weight, and they're at an ideal place. They're where they want to be, and make it work. And so it sounds like a lot of women just kind of have this. It's a stigma, not women in the space, because if you've gotten into the animal-based space, or you're an athlete, you've kind of gotten over those kind of stigmas. But all of them think, oh no, meat is going to make me bulky, it's going to make me big. It's like, no, not really going to do that in and of itself. It's processed food that's going to make people big and bulky. But you're talking about the most nutrient dense food we have available to us, not just in terms of protein and even healthy fat, the ideal fat, but the micronutrients, the minerals, and many vitamins like vitamin A, all the B vitamins, D, E. You just can't beat it for getting nutrient density all in one place. It's so bioavailable, so much more bioavailable than the majority of other foods, other grains, plants, veggies, stuff like that. It's just a much better source. That's why I put at the center of my diet, to not just hit the protein goals, but knowing I'm getting all those micronutrients as well. And then the ones that I need, like the magnesium and potassium, then I can focus on, okay, what foods are going to help me with that line up with my other goals. And I can have a little of those added to that and treat those like almost like supplementing what I'm not getting from the liver I eat. And so one of the ways I get the most nutrient dense meat I can, is to make sure I have liver in my diet pretty much every day. Unless I'm like out of town, I just can't have it, which doesn't happen very often. I usually have an ounce or 2 of liver, which is like the most ruminant liver. So liver from ruminant animal. It's a cow, buffalo, deer, sheep, goat, right? The most nutrient dense food that I'm aware of on the planet. Second only to maybe egg yolks. No, not second egg yolks, excuse me. Egg yolks are the next in line. That's what I meant to say. Liver's number 1 as far as I know. The other organs are certainly nutrient dense. Heart's got some great nutrients, but liver is really nutrient packed. With egg yolks being another great source of many of those nutrients, but nothing compared to liver. Nothing compared to liver. It's just it's almost a distant second. If you like egg yolks. Now, if you can't digest eggs, like the egg whites, I know a lot of people who just toss the whites. They put raw yolk on there, or lightly cooked yolk on their meat as a sauce, and they're getting a lot more nutrient density that way as well. But I like a little liver each day that I've cooked very lightly. Some people go raw with the liver, get a good source for it, and you trust, and hey, that's an incredible source of nutrients. If raw is a bit much for you, I like to cook it very lightly and as little as possible. Just what's necessary. So low temp. So I'll put it in a low setting on a crock pot, so it slow cooks. For me, I might be doing 2 pounds at a time, like that. So it's maybe an hour, tops hour and a half. Season as you like. Salt, keep it simple. But maybe add a little fat to it to give it a little more flavor, and give it some, if you want to add some butter or some tallow to that while it's cooking in there, to give it a little more richness and flavor, or offset the the gamey flavor from the liver, try that. But that to me is like that's the first thing I eat when I start eating in a day is my liver. And get that in my stomach, absorb those nutrients without anything else being in the way. That's how I start my eating for the day. So it may seem like a limiting diet. I don't feel that way anymore, because when I start eating foods, if I am, for instance, traveling, or I make the mistake of going out to dinner and I just try to choose something that would be the least inflammatory that I could digest well and it would meet my needs, and you don't always hit the mark, right? Because you're looking at a menu, maybe you're not used to that place, and you kind of go by the description or what you speak to the wait staff, and you have to make an educated guess. And sometimes you miss the mark, or sometimes there's something in there that you weren't aware of. I can feel it. It doesn't feel good. It takes sometimes take a couple of days for me to, depending on what it is, I'm going to get back where I'm feeling better again, whether it's my stomach or just energy level. But other than that, I mean, I just feel so good that I don't miss the foods that don't make me feel good. I don't miss those things. And I feel, I mean, it just sleeping better, having better energy levels, not having a bloated stomach, not feeling a food hangover. To me, that's so worth it at this point in my life. That means so much more to me than some indulgence on something that I know is just going to not serve me. So you can adjust this based on your personal goals by adjusting the meal frequency is one way to do it. Probably one of the main ways you will make adjustments to this is the meal frequency. So if your primary goal right now, at this point in your fitness journey, if you're early on, is weight loss, then I would stick to mostly 2 meals a day and maybe try to leverage a couple 1 meal a day days throughout the week, 1 or 2. Especially if you're under 60, you can take advantage of that. Over 60, we'll talk about that, but you got to watch the fasting because of the muscle loss. But I think if you're under 60, 2 meals a day should probably be your rule. And with, to really get to weight loss going or get past the plateau, 1 24-hour fast a week is ideal. 2 would give you a little more of an edge. And then just weigh out how that's affecting your energy, your hunger, your recovery, depending on how hard you're working out, or how much you're working out. You can adjust that. But like, for instance, on strength training days, you may want to do 3 meals a day, primarily protein. And then just if you need the carb for recovery or for the minerals, like I mentioned, you have a small amount. You have a small amount maybe post-workout or at dinner at the end of the day. But definitely start your day. If you're going to start your day with a meal early on, right, and like have it, say, a 10 or 11-hour eating window instead of an 6 or 8-hour eating window, make sure it's all protein, getting as much protein as you can. Protein and fat, of course, the fat that accompanies that protein. I wouldn't add, if you're trying to lose weight, I wouldn't add extra fat. I wouldn't be topping stuff off with a lot of butter or using a lot of cream or looking for ways to add fat. That's my opinion. I don't think you need, if you're trying to cut fat, you need to be adding additional fat. I'd go with the protein that has fat, like a ribeye, a hamburger, eggs, not so much the bacon, the sausage, the extra cream and the butter and all that. If you cook something in butter or tallow, that's different. But lumping it on like, hey, you can do no wrong with adding extra fat, I'm not of that opinion. Unless if you're early on in the switch and you're finding your appetite is distracting you, you're made that fat burning conversion yet, and you need that little extra fat at first to kind of satisfy your cravings. But realize that should be temporary. That should be in your transition phase, and you need to back off that and have more of the fat that accompanies your protein more so, and not have processed meat while you're trying to lose weight, because you want to start tapping into your stored fat rather than adding excess fat. That's where your fat burning takes place. So with weight loss, again, 2 meals a day should be your standard, in my opinion, with leverage points of 1 meal a day. But I wouldn't do more than twice a week with that. If you're doing 2 meals a day, I wouldn't do more than twice a week with a 1 meal a day. And then occasionally, if you want to do 3 meals, that's fine. It'd be rare, 1 or 2 times a week on intense activity days, resistance training, sprints, that kind of high intensity stuff. But again, make sure that third meal that you're adding in is pretty much just protein and the additional fat that comes with the fat that comes with that protein. Now, if you're at a place where you're not worried about weight loss, maybe you're trimming up a little fat, you want to lean out a little bit, but you're not trying to lose 20 pounds or more, right? So you're looking at muscle gain or maintenance and just leaning out. You can have a couple more of those 3 meals a day. Again, on the strength training days or intense training days, or just pick a couple of days a week where you do that to keep yourself from losing too quickly or losing too much, or affecting your sleep because you're overtaxing or creating too much of a stressor on your body. Especially as you get older, you'll find that has more of an impact. But again, 3 meals a day on resistance training days, 2 meals on rest or just lighter cardio days. You're just doing some zone 2 cardio or doing walks or just something, a fun activity that isn't super intense. That's a good 2 meal a day type of activity. So play with those, because again, every day doesn't have to have the same meal schedule. If it's a day where you're going to be working a lot, you won't get time to train. Hey, it's a good time to intermittent fast, compress your eating into 8 hours and or less, and just have 2, primarily protein-based days. You don't really need much carb. You don't need much fruit or other things. Whereas you might want a little sweet potato or fruit post-workout with your protein for quicker recovery and to keep your body from burning off as much of your protein as energy. Because let's face it, that's what happens, right? If you're just eating primarily protein, very little carb, what's happening is your body's creating glucose from that protein. It could be as much as 50 or 60% of your protein is being converted to glucose for energy. And that can be a slow process. So if you're working out intensely, regularly, or just having trouble recovering, or you want quicker recovery to get your head back in the game for work, you may want a little carb, like half a sweet potato, or 30, 40 grams ish post workout. Get things going again, so you're not having to wait on your body to turn protein into glucose, which is then stored as glycogen. It might use that glycogen for your liver, right? Sometimes that's enough. Just keep the blood sugar steady, your liver releasing blood sugar, glucose into your blood sugar to give you stable blood sugar, right? And to release a little more when you have stress, like a workout, a stressful presentation, confrontation, conflict. Sometimes it's traffic, right? But your liver is regulating your blood sugar, yes. If you need extra help because of stress, you might find a little carb might help to recover from the physical stress, because it takes a little longer to convert that protein into enough sugar from an intense. If you burned off a lot of glycogen in muscles all over your body, well, that means there's more protein that has to be broken down into glucose to refuel those muscles once they're empty. Otherwise, it's not a super active day. You're just looking at liver glycogen, which is only about 100 grams. I mean, the liver will hold up to 100 grams of glycogen, so about 400 calories. But then it will go through that throughout the day pretty easily for your energy needs. Realize that your exercise probably only makes up 10 or most 15% of your total calories in a day. 60, 70% of your caloric burn in a day, your basic metabolic rate, is from your organs, like your heart, your brain, your liver, kidneys. Those are using a lot of your energy, 60, 70% of your energy, just to run those four organs. So but it's at a pace that you can get by with just mostly fat burning and your body breaking down protein into gluconeogenesis, for maintaining normal blood sugar levels. And if your body didn't do that, you wouldn't live through the day. So you understand that's normal. That's how it's supposed to work. It's a nice steady your body managing the amount of glucose that needs to come out or be produced into your bloodstream, rather than a dose all at one time from a carb, right? But I think there's a place for those, and you have to kind of figure out what that is. Now, if you're over 60, I wouldn't do. Here's the problem with being over 60, and it's 60 is a nice round number we use, but somewhere in it could be late 50s for you. It could be early 60s. We start noticing, hey, you can't sustain 8-hour fat eating windows every single day without noticing. If you're trying to lose weight, that's one thing, but you might notice distressed sleep or lack of deep sleep. Maybe not much, very slow recovery from intense workout or intense active day. And you might be losing muscle weight or just feel kind of run down. So you might need more of those 3 meal a days in your week, where you're eating over maybe a 10 or 11 hour window. I definitely keep it less than 12, for sure, 12 or less. But you might have 3 or 4 3 meals a day, and then you'll have 2 or 3 2 meals a day. I don't know if even 1 meal a day after 60, if you're just because you want muscle and bone density should be your primary goal. Your primary goal focus from your eating and your workout should be muscle and bone density, unless you just you're obese or 20 pounds overweight or more. Then lose the weight, but don't do it by sacrificing muscle and bone density. So you can still lose that weight, which should be a focus, but you've got to hang on to your muscle and bone density. And sarcopenia is much more of a risk. So muscle wasting is much more of a risk after 60, just because we don't digest protein as efficiently. And so we often, you might have seen this recommended by a lot of people, but we probably need to increase our protein intake after 60 years old, definitely over 70. You get past 70, those of you who are 70, you plan on eating more protein and more often. You may not be able to digest as much at one time, like sitting down to a pound of meat to digest if you're not used to it after 60 or 70. Maybe too much. It's a lot easier to do when you're younger, and stomach acid's stronger. But you got to make it work, adjust to it. Getting that protein in and getting some strength training, intense strength training in to maintain muscle density and bone density, or what's going to sustain you long term. And in the process of that, burn off the fat by not feeding the fat with sugar, processed foods, processed seed oils, or eating those things too often, I should say. Eating the carb. I think carbs could definitely play a role in keeping you from, as you get older, keep you from using so much of your protein as energy. And that needs to be your strategy. So you might need to add in more of the sweet potato and banana, because it creates less stress and less of a demand for your protein to be used for energy, and use more of your protein for structure, which is what you're beginning to lose at a more rapid rate after 60. Decrease in hormones, digestion, digestive ability for the protein. Those have to be considered. And you look at your results, see how you feel. But 1 meal a day, I think once a week would be more than enough for someone who's 60. It might be something you do once a month or not once a week, but once a month, or maybe twice a month. And then you're doing 3 meals a day, the other ones, or maybe some 2 meals a day. But I think don't try to fit your needs or your habits to match that of someone who's 20 years younger than you. It's just you. It's not. You're not the same. You're not even the same if you're 20. If you're 40-year-old self. Things I know start between 50 and 40. I can't get away with what I did at 40 now at 50, including that means good things like stressors, like fasting, training schedule. And I overdid it. I was over leveraging all of those stressors when I was 50, just a year and a half ago. I just could feel I wasn't recovering. I wasn't sleeping well. Cortisol, I'm sure, was pretty high. I was just I just realized I was over indexing everything. I was over indexing the low carb, the my training frequency, which is 4 intense strength trainings a week, plus probably some sprinting thrown in there, and a lot of intermittent fasting with a 1 meal a day once a week, and then a lot of 8-hour eating windows. I just wasn't getting enough. I wasn't getting enough recovery. I wasn't getting enough food. I was overdoing too many stressors. And I had to adjust. I had to back off on training, add some more meals, add another meal in a day on several other days, open up my eating window on other days, and really think about not being dogmatic, not being so stuck in, hey, this is the best way to do things, and overdoing it all. And saying, yeah, you're 50. Things are kind of work like they did when you were 40 or even 45. You have to pay attention to what your body's telling you, more so than following what seems to be the ideal plan and someone that worked for somebody else. So consider your results, consider how you feel, pay attention to sleep, I use an Oura ring, track my sleep, make sure I'm getting enough deep sleep. And really make protein the center, hitting that protein goal as your one of your first goals of your diet. And that may mean more 3 meals a day, spread out in bigger window, 10 to 11 hour window in the day. So you have time to digest all that. So you have 3 meals that are five hours apart. And find that you feel better, recover better, and sleep. And then you only have a couple 2 meals a day that are compressed in 8-hour windows. Over 70, I think 3 meals a day should probably be your plan. The majority of days, if not all of them. And just focus on the protein and add in the other foods, the other fruit, the whole food, as needed, but more often than you did when you were younger, because you're going to need them more to preserve that protein for structure. You just need more lean mass and strength, and you may have to eliminate those 16-hour fasting days completely past a certain age. And an animal-based diet with low carb intake it should be kind of your basis, and then you adjust the meal frequencies around that. But I can tell you, I'm tracking with my sleep with my Oura ring. What I have found, and this was I kind of discovered it. This was even a year after I was over leveraging when I was 50. This was earlier this year in March. I was in Costa Rica at an animal-based retreat, and we were just eating a ton of fruit. I mean, there's tons of fruit down there, tons of tropical fruit, and so I was eating it. I was very active. I volunteered to help with the trip, help organize the trip. So I was always constantly going and getting people from A to B and keeping up with the schedule. So I really didn't slow down much. And I'm sleeping in a cabin, like a hotel kind of place. Have my little cabina there. And I normally, if I'm in a hotel, I don't sleep so well. So I didn't expect myself to get a lot of deep sleep. And I already struggle with getting more, an hour or more of deep sleep a night based on my worrying. But I was eating fruit with meat, of course, eating ribeyes and all that kind of stuff, but eating plenty of tropical fruit there, morning and evening, more than I'd probably ever eaten in my life, which is to enjoy myself, but it was so good. And I was so busy and tired many times physically, that I was just eating a little more fruit and enjoying it. So for 4 days, why not? My deep sleep was incredible. Actually, I was getting an hour or more of deep sleep. Of course, plenty of sun during the day, which helps stimulate the circadian rhythm to work like it should. Lots of daytime sleep, then it knows, okay, time to turn off. Nighttime, it's dark. Gets dark at 5:30 there, so it started getting dark earlier. I'm sure that had an effect. But I thought, could it be the fruit? Could it be the extra, not just the carbs itself, but all the minerals, potassium and magnesium in there that are helping me with getting better sleep? So after I came back from Costa Rica, I said, okay, let's play with this. And I started eating. I didn't eat as much during the day as I did when I was there. I still had my sweet potato post-workout with all my protein. But I started eating a couple bananas after dinner, after I'd gotten in the protein I needed for the day, but before I went to bed. So it was somewhere between dinner and bedtime, a couple of bananas. Not heavy enough to disturb my sleep, easily digested, but got me the potassium and magnesium I needed and a little carb. And realizing, just talking to other people in the nutrition space, and especially people in animal-based space that have just experienced this, that they have that, or even low carb, you can have this, we wake up at 2 or 3 a.m., you're wide awake. It's like, what's going on? It's a hormonal wake up. I mean, it's just like, okay, it's like I'm waking up after a good night's sleep and I haven't slept that long. You're staring at the ceiling. It's like, what's going on? That's cortisol being released to create more glucose by breaking down the protein, create more glucose for the liver glycogen. Because of eating so low carb, you just run out of liver glycogen, don't get through the night. I don't have a lot of fat, fairly lean, don't have a lot of body fat on me, so there's not a lot to, your body only give up so much fat in a day. The leaner you get, the less it is. It's like a percentage of your body fat. I can't tell you exactly what that is, but it's just, you have less to burn. You have less to give up. Your body wants to retain that. So start breaking down some more protein that you've eaten, like from dinner, to create more glucose. And, it's not breaking down muscles per se, because I've got a belly full of protein. But it definitely seemed to make sense that I was experiencing this cortisol because of the way I was waking up. This cortisol release for more gluconeogenesis, for more glucose to be released. I'm like, okay, well, how do I put more glucose in my body or sugar to burn, and as well as have the magnesium and potassium for relaxing the muscles? Bananas. A couple bananas after dinner, and it seems to do the trick, where now I'm consistently getting hour and a half of deep sleep most nights of the week, which I wasn't doing before. But all I have to do is add some bananas. There's no downside. It's not like I'm putting weight on from eating a couple of bananas, especially the way I eat and as active as I am. They're not going to make you fat. It's metabolically healthy. Insulin levels are solid. There's been no downside. And I wouldn't expect there to be from eating a couple of bananas. But for that, it's all been great. Upside because of the deep sleep, which makes me feel so much better, more energetic next day, more stamina. And I know it's getting the kind of sleep that I want. So that was probably one area where I couldn't figure it out. I was kind of lacking. And all it took was adding a little fruit at night. It's that simple. That's what my body needed. Someone else may not need it. That's fine. That's great for someone else. I need it because sleep is important to me. And it wasn't working the way I was doing it. I was over-indexing the stressors for my body and for my age, for this point in my life. Now, lots of benefits from the animal-based low-carb diet in general. You're just not hungry for much else, which is why I didn't miss those. I could over-index or stress my body like that and not really notice it or miss it or feel like it wasn't like I was making myself hungry all the time. But when I'm fasting and I'm focused on other things. And many times when I'm eating compressed eating window, like an 8-hour eating window, I'm not always hungry for dinner. I'm just barely getting hungry when it's time for dinner. So I'm just not that hungry because I'm not stimulating blood sugar. I'm not stimulating hunger hormones by snacking and eating carby foods at a time, obviously. So not hungry for much else. So you make better food decisions, right? It's a lot easier to avoid processed omega-6 oils and linoleic acid because I'm not craving things. I'm not snacking. I'm not going after junk foods. I cook with more tallow, butter, lard, coconut oil. I'm not chasing my protein needs and non-protein foods. So, and you probably know this, but if you're not eating adequate protein, you're probably going to start looking for it wherever else you start eating. You should pick up another food that's not a protein-based food. It's a carb or a fat, and you're going to go through a lot more of it chasing that protein, trying to get adequate protein needs. That's why you can't just have a taste of it or a small portion of it. You just want more because your body wants that protein. And I'm primarily eating the most nutrient-dense bioavailable foods on the planet. Liver, animal meat, and then when I'm choosing the carbs, it's for those minerals. So it's the sweet potato, the banana, with the minerals that I'm maybe lacking in, right? It's not junk food carb. It's not just taking a supplement. It's eating it in the food matrix. That's what I like about eating the fruit, because I'm getting the benefit of not only having enough food I have to digest and break down to get that sugar, but all the nutrients around that offset, help you manage those carbs coming in, that are helping me with the other minerals I'm not getting, the minerals like the potassium, magnesium, as I mentioned. And it's within the food matrix, which we don't fully understand. I don't think we fully understand. We do to a large degree, but I still think we emphasize the benefits of eating and getting minerals and nutrients within a food matrix rather than taking a supplement for them. And because it's just not as profitable, right? Let's face it, supplements are a lot more profitable. But you're always better off getting it in the food matrix. And so if you're eating a diet that leaves out nutrients that you need, you probably want to include those foods first before you start adding a supplement. Supplements are fine, can be beneficial if you're just still not getting enough. But look for foods that provide the things you're missing in a significant way. You're going to be it's going to be a lot more bioavailable, a lot more natural, more easily assimilated and more familiar to your body than some lab created supplement. And that's outside of the realm of the food matrix, where it has other nutrients around it that help you with the absorption of that and use of those nutrients. So those are the benefits, I think, of eating this way. Now, if you're concerned you can't digest that much meat, totally understandable. It will take some time to adjust. I'd say take baby steps, allow your stomach acid to adjust, right? Start with just if you're really under eating protein, this is really new for you, or you're just a small female. That sounds like a lot of protein, which the smaller you are, you can argue either way. If you're like at 200 pounds and I'm lean, to me, that's hard to get 200 pounds. 100 grams is nothing. If you're a 100-pound, give or take, female, 100 grams of protein, that's probably seems like a lot. You're not used to eating that much. That's fine. And you may not need to get all the way up to 100 grams if you literally weigh 100 pounds, but you at least be getting 80 or 90. Okay, get close as you can. But give yourself some time. And 2 meals, that might be a lot to you. But really, for most people who are looking somewhere between ideal weight between 130 and 100, say 90 pounds, male or female, getting 100 grams a day should not be hard. That's like 2 8-ounce portions of meat. So you literally do that in 2 meals very easily. Figure a pound of meat or 500 grams of meat is give or take 100 grams of protein. It's close enough for round numbers. So 2 8-ounce portions, you can get yourself into that habit within a few weeks of getting 2 8-ounce portions of meat and have 2 meals and then just having, whatever else you're eating work around that. But put that the focus or primary focus or center of your diet. And then slowly start increasing to hitting. Now, if you weigh 130 pounds, 100 grams might do it as far as getting your 75% of your proteins, maybe 100, 110. But increase to 75 grams of protein per pound of body weight from that point. And it might be adding a third meal or increasing your meat intake at one of the other 2 meals. So you can either do like a 12-ounce portion and an 8-ounce portion, or you could do the 2 8-ounce meals, portion, 8 ounces at each meal, and then a third meal either between them or before one of those of 4 ounces. That's not bad. Now you're at about 130 grams, 125 grams. So yeah, 125 grams. That can cover a lot of room. You're at 75% or 0.75 grams of protein per pound of body weight for, maybe someone who weighs 150, 160, 170. You're in the ballpark, right? But the best thing you can do to make this easier is focus on eating your protein foods at each meal first, right? You eat them first. You don't eat salad, for goodness sake. Raw veggies is going to really use up, dilute your stomach acid. You don't want to drink water with your meal, especially seltzers, even right before or right after. That's going to dilute your stomach acid and make it harder to digest. But start with focusing on the protein foods, and then whatever other food you want with your meal, you have that after, and then you're not as hungry. And it's much easier to have portion control with those things and just eat the amount that you need, right? Or skip them if you don't need them because you're already satisfied. But eat them first at each meal. If you feel like your stomach acid isn't quite keeping up, try drinking a couple ounces of undiluted, so don't mix water, undiluted apple cider vinegar right before the meal to help strengthen your stomach acid. I still do that. I still think it helps me digest that much meat. But I think prioritizing it at each meal rather than eating other things first, you're going to be a lot better off. And that means adjusting your habits. You're just going to find a lot more benefit to it. It might make you look a little weird at the dinner table. That's okay too. And just for one egg, like if you're having whole eggs, which I certainly say if you can digest them well and you don't have any histamine issues with eggs, certainly add them to, if you treat a whole egg like an ounce of meat or 6 grams of protein. That's the best way. The whole egg. If you start dividing out yolk from white, you're going to almost cut that protein in half. It's about 2.5, 2.67 or something like that, right there. 2.5, 2 3/4 grams of protein per yolk, about 3.5 grams of protein for the white. So the whole thing together is right around 6. So if you had 3 eggs with 6 ounces of meat, well, you're looking at about 54 grams of protein. That's pretty good. That's a pretty good meal. Get you started for the day, right? Or whenever you want to take it in, but it's still 50 grams. You're halfway to 100 right there. So you can mix that up for some variety in your diet, but if you kind of start counting, worry about counting macros or counting um, something, calories, I don't know that that's going to be real beneficial, but start managing your protein first, right? That's sometimes the easiest, but just start with counting one thing, that's your protein, and have that first. And that will offset your hunger enough that you can make portion decisions on the other foods. Like, I'm just going to have half a sweet, half a banana or one banana and stop, or, um, I'm going to try a little bit of this side dish that is on the table, but but you're full enough that you're not going to overindulge, right? Or make that 30% of your meal. Now my workouts are generally fasted if I can get to them early enough in the day, which is usually the goal. Ideally before 2 p.m. If I get to them before 2 p.m., I'm fasted going into them. I eat after that. So that definitely compresses the day. It just depends on the schedule and how much fasting I've been doing that day or that week. And if I feel like I need a third meal or something like that. But generally speaking, I go into them fasted and then eat shortly after. Try and hit that, high amount of protein, usually 50 to 80 grams with a little bit of carbohydrate, usually more like 60 to 80 grams with a little, like half a sweet potato for recovery, and then move on. But I do start with the protein. And again, the after dinner fruit to help with sleep has been very beneficial to me on a consistent basis, where I'm getting 5, sometimes 6 nights a week of getting adequate deep sleep, and only having 1 or 2 off nights a week. Huge improvement for me and well worth it. Again, I'm not experiencing any downside. Actually feel great. And then try to get sun as often as possible during the day. If that means just taking a break. If I haven't been outside much, get outside, go for a walk at the end of the day before the sun goes down, getting the light in my eyes, finding a reason to be outside, and get light in the eyes and on the skin, and really try to keep the circadian rhythm intact and getting the vitamin D, benefits, which I have a hard time keeping high, especially in the winter, and really crave the sun in the winter. So that's another need of mine. I love the sun, and it just feels better when I get enough of it. But that is generally how I approach my diet. And again, you can see how you can adjust that based on your age, your goals. A lot of it's just the biggest lever point there. The change is your meal frequency and how often you have more meals or less meals, but generally the same food. It's just how often are you eating, and what is your eating window? And that might be all you need to adjust between going from weight loss to where you're at maintenance level and you want to put on some more muscle, or as you age, go from your 40s, your 50s, your 60s. It's just adjusting the eating window and the meal frequency. So what are the results of this for me? I just had some pictures taken. A lot of them were fitness related. Some were, basic headshots. Some were fitness related. I wanted my body to look good, right? I wanted to be lean as I could. I wasn't going to flip my lifestyle upside down to do it, but I wanted to, do what I could to leverage it over a period of weeks, especially that last week before they took the pictures. And so I was really pulling back on carbs and reducing meal frequency. And I looked good. I was happy with how they turned out, with my body composition, again, without being, overdoing it. I wasn't trying to step on stage for bodybuilding, but I wanted to at least capture, a lean look. I was taking pictures at 51 years old, call a little bit of vanity, but I knew I could, in a matter of weeks, create a visual difference, an aesthetic difference, that wouldn't be unhealthy or turn my lifestyle upside down. And so I had a DEXA scan, which is the body comp version. So if you go look for ask for a DEXA, make sure you tell them you want the body comp, not or they'll just give you a bone density. It's the same machine, but it's two different tests, and you better specify it. I learned that the hard way. But they're going to think, oh, you just want the bone density. No, I want the body comp. Give me the body comp. It's a lot of people don't ask for that. You'd be surprised. So it's almost like a paradigm shift for the techs. But anyway, about 5 days after that shoot, and on my diet, I just started eating adequate calories, but my diet didn't change. I didn't like come off of that shoot and all that time and binge on anything that I wouldn't normally eat at all. I ate what I usually do, just more adequate level, and started, had a couple workouts in there, and it was back to my normal routine as quickly as possible. But I was at about it had me at about 11%, which is great. I'm 51, 11% body fat. Look good. What I was really happy with, the visceral fat, which is the fat that's under the muscle and in your trunk, in your torso, it seems to gather around the organs as well. But if you can get a layer of it that's just under the muscle, right? But there's some that can gather specifically around the liver, spleen, kidney, pancreas, kidneys, heart, of course. But the total visceral fat was about 197 grams, which that converts to about 7 ounces. That's pretty low. It's like less than half a pound. I'm good with that. That's for me, it's very low. So the visceral fat is the most metabolically impactful. It's the one that's going to throw off our insulin resistance, triglyceride, high triglycerides. It's going to push the stomach out. Waist circumference, add to your waist circumference. Waist circumference is a direct indicator of all-cause mortality risk. So the bigger your waist, especially over a certain measurement, higher your risk of all-cause mortality. All sorts of things can happen to you, right? Risk of diabetes, heart disease, all sorts of things. So to have less than half a pound of fat in my torso around those organs and stuff, to me, that seems like just enough to burn if I needed it, but not enough to be metabolically impactful for sure. So I was quite happy with that. And that's the one I would say keep an eye on. Your subcutaneous fat in your arms, legs, unless you're just overweight. I mean, you need to lose weight. If you definitely have visceral fat if you're in that condition. But the fat that's under your skin, that's in your limbs and so forth, not very metabolically impactful until it becomes it becomes sick, or becomes, sick fat cells, or inflamed fat cells, or just, over an abundance of it. But if you're a normal, healthy weight, that fat under your skin doesn't have a big hormonal impact. Your visceral fat, on the other hand, has a huge hormonal impact as it gets to be too much of it. And if it's affecting liver function, kidney function, then you're going to have the issues with blood sugar control, blood pressure, all sorts of things like that. So definitely keep the visceral fat low, and something you want to monitor. And again, my fasting insulin is low. It's like 3. I've had taken that at least once a year. It's usually 2 or 3. You want under 5, ideally would be awesome. 5 to 8 is still good and healthy, but you get past 8, you're pushing the danger zone, in my opinion. And then my plaque score, I spent 20 years eating whole eggs every day, 3 to 4 eggs every day. I don't eat that much now, but between late 20s to mid 40s or so, late 40s, I ate 3 or 4 whole eggs a day, pretty much, with very little exception. Just loved them. And my plaque scores. So I've been eating, cholesterol, what they call cholesterol foods. We know that's not a big deal anymore. We know eating dietary cholesterol has very little to no effect on your serum cholesterol. And we know that good, healthy, whole food cholesterol is is actually good for us. It's the oxidized stuff we have to watch out for. But for those asking, my CAC plaque score, zero plaque at 51 years old. And I eat a pound and a half to 2 pounds of meat a day now, and ate 3 or 4 whole eggs again for over 20 years. I just don't eat as much of them now because I think meat has more protein density. They're an indulgence. I like them, but I also find if I eat them all the time, my digestion's a little off. So it's probably something where just with age or just becoming more sensitive, I don't need to eat that many eggs all the time. But I do have them periodically with some meat. I don't think they're bad. Just judge how they affect you. But I'm metabolically healthy and have no arterial plaque, and I'm doing all the things they warn you not to do because it's going to cause plaque and heart disease and diabetes. Just ridiculous. So, got little visceral fat. My fasting insulin is ridiculously low, and 0 plaque. So, at some point with age, genetic advantages wear off. And we can see this with incredible athletes, right? These incredible athletes who are far better genetics than I do, for sure, to be able to perform and recover on a level of either college level or professional. They're amazing. They're amazing physiques, amazing creatures. They're amazing in ways to perform like that. Genetically gifted, not just training hard, but genetically gifted beyond your average person. I think we can all admit that. And yet, if they don't maintain their diet and fitness as they age, you see them get past 40 and 50, they are subject to the same problems, diseases, health issues that the rest of us are. It may come a little later for them, but they're subject to it if they don't maintain the lifestyle. I'm at 51 years old and no signs of metabolic disease at all. Blood pressure's good. If my fasting insulin is low, then my blood sugar is obviously stable. That's not just genetics. I can't tack that up to just genetics. That is lifestyle choices, and not just what I'm eating, but what I'm avoiding. Avoiding the processed oils, avoiding linoleic acid, avoiding processed grains, and processed foods in general. Very limited amount, especially over the last few years. Probably more so than my 20s and 30s. For sure, just as knowledge improved and my discipline improved, and as I got older, realizing those things didn't serve me. Very little. I had more alcohol consumption back in my 20s and 30s. I think that's surprising. Very little alcohol consumption now, especially over the last couple of years. Very rare that I would have any. It just doesn't serve me. I don't feel as well. I don't sleep as well, and I don't miss it. I like the taste of it now and then, but now I think, I can taste it. I can just have a taste and then walk away, and that's still very rare. So this works well for me. It works well for my clients who are trying to lose weight and change their lifestyle, and it works for a lot of other people I've connected with in the community who are very healthy, very athletic at a variety of ages. This seems to be consistently, in general, with variation for someone's lifestyle preferences. I mean, there's always room for variation. It's not meant to be a dogmatic way of eating. It's supposed to be a way of eating that leverages the most nutrient-dense foods to fit your lifestyle needs, your activity levels, your stress, whatever your goals are for the moment. That's what it should be. And you should be able to change that or vary that based on your needs, based on your age, on your activity level, and your goals for the moment. Okay, which those can change. You're not going to do the same to lose weight as you would to maintain and build muscle. That's going to adjust a little bit. But the simplicity of this is that, as I said, you can leverage meal frequency alone and have a lot of room to vary it even throughout the week or through each decade. And that can give you a lot of room for adjusting it to fit your needs, that's not very confusing. There's not much to that. It's a simple way of making adjustments without creating a risk. You have a lot of benefit, not much risk, not a lot of downside on that. Just adding another meal and you feel better. Oh, magic. But this is what I have found at this point. After a couple of decades, 3 decades of searching for the ideal way of eating and looking at research and getting connected with a community of people who are thriving, this seems to be, ideal for me. I feel fantastic. I have great health markers, great blood work, and it's working. I can vary it depending on my needs very simply. It's not complex. It's a simple diet, easy to follow, and create in my life. Once the adjustments and the habits are created, it's very simple to enact and to maintain, with it, and able to vary it based on my needs even week to week, with just simple meal frequency or adjusting workout schedule. So hope this works for you. If you have questions about this, feel free to reach out to me on Instagram. It's probably the best ways to get to me, at Zane Griggs Fitness. I'd love to hear your questions. I post about this kind of stuff often. I actually did post about this with a little less detail, obviously. So happy to answer questions there about this, because I know it can be, if you're not used to it, there might be some confusing elements just because of all the messaging we get around this stuff. But happy to answer questions and help you find your way with this. Thank you. Have a great month.